Yeah, I mean, he's certainly trending that way for the long term, and he's just got to keep this up, keep setting those examples because on the ice, he has the best habits of players always talk about playing the right way. You want to talk about playing the right way as a forward. Pettersson's showing that right now, even if you just look outside of his offensive production.
Yeah, that's what I completely agree with. And I think that's the thing. He is. I mean, we see it so much in the NHL. Like, think of like Nick Suzuki being given the C, and like players in that situation. Like, I feel like yeah, Suzuki's a good leader. Good Canadian kid comes up through the system and becomes a captain early. That's why I look at Pettersson. I was like, I think he's in the same boat of like being the heartbeat of this team when this team's going. So that's the way I'm sitting with it. Anyways, I wanted to ask about your thoughts on Ilya Mikheyev on that line too, because this is something we've chatted about a little bit in the past where we didn't know early parts of the season if you're getting the most offense out of that trio. And I'm talking about Pettersson, Kuzmenko, and Mikheyev right now. Mikheyev looked like he generated a lot at the start of the season, and we've seen throughout the year. I think a lot of the stuff that you heard from Toronto of his ability to finish is definitely in question, but his ability to create, I think that's the thing that doesn't get talked about enough because his speed creates so much opportunity for scoring chances. And I think defensively, that's where Mikheyev kind of brings his like carries his weight and more on that line. I think that's the interesting part about watching him defend from the winger position. It is impressive how much space he can take up with his length and his speed as well. So I think that that's something like I'm trying to think of like a long extended possession that line has had against them, and it's kind of hard to like. It doesn't happen where I asked a lot of players this last week when we were in the room with them because the Canucks, it felt like when they have a very long possession against them in their own zone, they get scored on every time. And if it's like if the puck's in there for more than 90 seconds, they're going to get scored on. It's just a matter of time. Those 90-second shifts just aren't happening against the Pettersson, Mikheyev, Kuzmenko line. And like it's not like Kuzmenko's this defensive whiz, but I think that's what maybe we should be looking at Mikheyev is his speed is obviously his biggest strength, but his biggest strength in that trio might also be what he does defensively.
Absolutely, and it's especially essential now that we're talking about the Pettersson line potentially playing against the opposition's best players, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking about tomorrow against Vegas, for example. They're going to be facing Jack Eichel again. Jack Eichel, one of the hottest players in the NHL, really taking that next step forward as a legit superstar. Pettersson's been great from a two-way perspective, but for as well as Andrei Kuzmenko has played overall, there are definitely defensive warts in his game. And that's where it helps to have Mikheyev as an extra security blanket where you then don't have to worry about can Kuzmenko sort of survive and excel in that sort of role as well. Is he ready for it? Because I think that was one of the concerns that Boudreau had going into the season was I remember asking Boudreau and Whistler, will you use that Pettersson line or consider using it more often in a matchup sort of role?